revealed how one inspiring cleaner won the love of a millionaire's baby against all odds. Sarah's hands were worn yet steady as they glided over the polished countertop of another sprawling mansion. Each stroke carried the weight of her hopes and dreams for her vibrant 7-year-old daughter, Mia. Every evening, as she returned to their modest home, she felt the bittersweet ache of their financial struggles pressing against her chest. Yet, the gleam in Mia's eyes and the warmth of her laughter flickered hope in Sarah's heart like the soft glow of a candle in a storm. As the vibrant energy of Chicago buzzed outside, Sarah navigated between chores and bedtime stories, driven by an unyielding love that ignited her spirit. "We can make it, Mia," she often reminded her, wrapping her daughter in a comforting embrace. The neighborhood they called home was undergoing unsettling changes, with the whispers of gentrification creeping through the close-knit community, threatening the bonds they cherished. When Sarah found herself cleaning the opulent mansion of Ryan, a young millionaire caught in the clutches of his family's suffocating expectations, it was as if worlds collided. Ryan, despite his wealth, felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. Their brief exchanges, the spark of connection that ignited between them, revealed layers of longing and dreams buried beneath societal expectations. "Sometimes I wonder if this is really what life should be," Ryan confided one day, gazing out over the city that held both promise and pain. This raw moment brought an unexpected warmth to Sarah's heart, filling her with something she thought she'd left behind: hope. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As their bond deepened, the winds of change howled through their lives. The community that once embraced them began to divide over the unlikely romance. Whispers followed Sarah like shadows. Friends eyed her with a mix of awe and doubt. Could love bridge the chasm of class? The tension mounted, a palpable weight hanging in the air. She felt the stirrings of something bigger than just her relationship with Ryan. Determined to stand tall, Sarah took a deep breath one fateful evening. She knew she had to confront the very prejudices that fractured her neighborhood. Gathering her friends, the passionate voices of the community resonated with her as they united for a campaign that celebrated their struggle and resilience amidst a world that favored privilege over authenticity. Just as she stepped onto the makeshift stage, the love of her life stood at the back. Ryan, torn between the life he was expected to lead and the joys of the woman who ignited space in his heart. The crowd murmured, tension thick as molasses. Locking eyes with him, Sarah felt the intensity surge. Could love forge a path through the chasms of expectation and prejudice? As she prepared to pour out her heart, the vital question lingered in the air. Can love truly conquer all, or will societal barriers prove too great? Sarah stood on the stage, her heart racing as she stared into the crowd. Faces of friends and neighbors blurred together. She couldn't shake the feeling that their eyes were filled with judgment, calculating the odds of her love story. Would they celebrate her or tear her down? A low hum of whispers rippled through the air, amplifying her doubt. But there was Ryan, unwavering at the back. His presence steadied her. She remembered the vulnerable moments they had shared, the quiet confessions, and the late-night chats filled with dreams. It was those moments that fueled her resolve. She cleared her throat and began to speak, her voice wavering initially but gaining strength with every word. "We've all felt the walls closing in on us," she started, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "Change is hard. Watching our homes disappear one by one isn't easy. But we must fight to hold on to what makes us who we are. Love, resilience, community, these are the things that can't be taken away." A cheer erupted. It sent warmth coursing through her veins, but doubt still lingered. Could she really inspire change? "Sarah!" shouted a voice from the crowd. Samantha, her oldest friend. "You're fighting for us. Keep going." The cheers ignited the spark within her. "We need to stand together, regardless of wealth or status. Love shouldn't be dictated by the balance in our bank accounts." Her words hung in the air, powerful and raw. From the corner of her eye, she caught Ryan's expression shifting, an encouraging smile stretching across his face. It was enough to push her forward. "We are stronger than the stories told about us. Together, we can change the narrative." Suddenly, a voice pierced through the rising cheer. "But is love really strong enough? Can it withstand the disapproval of families? The pressures of society?" A skeptical resident challenged her, crossing his arms defensively. She felt the air shift. Greed, wealth, and privilege lingered like a storm cloud over their gathering. What is love without a challenge? It's easy to love when nothing is in the way. True love shows up in the face of adversity. It fights. It takes risks. It leaps without knowing how deep the fall may be. Ryan moved closer, his eyes locked on hers, and the crowd hushed. It was as if time stood still. She could see his admiration reflected in the eyes of those watching. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, an alert from the community bulletin board. It was a notice. "Effective immediately, property taxes will rise dramatically in our neighborhood." Her heart sank. Fear slithered back into her thoughts. "Today isn't just about love," she yelled, gripping the microphone tight, her resolve swelling. "It's about fighting for our home, our families, our future. Let us stand united before it's too late." The crowd erupted into wild applause, chants of her name rising around her. But her heart raced for another reason. She could see Ryan moving forward, determination in his eyes. It felt as if he wanted to speak too. "Sarah," he called. "Can we?" Before he could finish, the sound of clashing car horns interrupted them, followed by a roar of sirens across the neighborhood. A chill crept through the crowd. "What is happening?" someone whispered. Fingers gripped Sarah's arm as realization dawned. This was more than a love story. It was a fight for survival. Just as she started to ascend this new challenge, fear coiled in her gut. What would happen next? What sacrifices would they have to make? And in that tense moment, standing among her community, Sarah faced an uncertain future. Would their love be enough to endure the storm looming on the horizon? The sirens blared closer now, a jarring contrast to the passion brewing in Sarah's heart. Faces around her shifted from excitement to concern, anxiety creeping in like a dark shadow. Whispers of confusion circled, igniting a sense of urgency. "What does this mean?" someone muttered. "Are we being evicted?" Ryan's hand found hers, a solid anchor in the volatile sea of emotions. His grip was reassuring, but she could feel the tension in his muscles, the worry etched on his brow. They were all on edge, united by fear. "Listen," Sarah shouted over the din. "Whatever is happening, we can handle it. Together." Her voice reverberated against the wood of the stage, a beacon of hope against the storm brewing outside. The crowd quieted, hanging on to her every word. Some faces softened, reflecting the spirit that had ignited her courage. "Sarah," another voice called out. It was old Mr. Thompson, a lifelong resident whose home had stood strong for decades. "What do we do? We can't let them push us out." A shift in energy erupted from the crowd as they rallied around her. This was no longer just about love, it was about their lives, their histories tied to these homes. She swallowed hard, steeling herself. "We fight back. We organize. We let them know we want to be silent." But as she spoke, a harsh reality crashed down behind her confidence. Would her words be enough? She could see the doubt in the eyes of some, the weariness of a community that had fought too many battles already. As the roaring sirens grew louder, they approached a fleet of police cars and emergency responders. Was there a protest? A raid? To be displaced would shatter their lives. Ryan leaned close, urgency threading his words. Sarah, I think we should get down there. Find out what is going on. Through the chaos, her heart raced. They could face whatever was happening together, but the fear of the unknown clawed at her. What if they were confronted by those powers trying to manipulate or intimidate them? The stakes seemed insurmountable. Yes, she decided, steadying her breath as the crowd began to shift towards the street. But first, let us hold our ground. Don't let fear take us down. A collective nod swept through the group. She stepped off the stage, hand in hand with Ryan, leading the charge. When they reached the intersection, the scene was grim. People were shouting, holding signs demanding fair treatment, facing off with officers in dark vests. Heart pounding, Sarah squeezed Ryan's hand tighter, drawing strength from him. Let us make our voices heard, she called out, rallying her neighbors. Together, they stepped forward, a united front against the storm threatening to tear them apart. But amid the clamor, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, a stern figure draped in a tailored suit, flanked by associates. It was Mr. Callahan, the wealthy developer who had long sought to overhaul their neighborhood for profit. Enough of this nonsense, he bellowed, his voice slicing through the noise. You're all foolish to think you can fight this. The law is on my side. Fury surged through Sarah like wildfire. You may think you have control, but we're not backing down. Not now, not ever. For every powerful word she spoke, she could feel her community rallying behind her like a shield. In that moment, she realized something profound. This fight wasn't just about her love for Ryan, but a testament to the bonds they refused to sever, no matter the cost. But as the tension escalated and insults flew, another siren cut through the air. A helicopter thumped overhead, sending shadows darting across the pavement. Sarah's stomach dropped as she felt the weight of impending consequence press down. This was only the beginning. The fight for their home had just ignited. But would they withstand this battle, or would the storm wash it all away? The answer lay ahead, deeper in the chaos that loomed. Would she be able to stand with Ryan under the weight of the world? The ground beneath them vibrated with the thumping of the helicopter's blades. Sarah's heart raced, caught between the adrenaline of the moment and a gnawing apprehension. Faces she had known all her life surrounded her, some tense with fear, others ignited with determination. She could see Mr. Callahan's smug grin in the distance, as if he thrived on their anguish. Stay together, Sarah shouted again, hoping her voice could buoy the spirits of her neighbors, a lifeline in the swirling tide of chaos. Ryan's grip on her hand tightened, a steady anchor, and she drew strength from it. They were a family, a community woven together by history and resilience. The crowd surged forward, chanting for justice and unity. We won to be silenced, a voice cried out, and the words echoed through the air like a battle cry. It was just what they needed, a reminder of their shared spirit. They were more than just a group of neighbors. They were warriors in their own right. As police officers shifted, forming a barrier around Mr. Callahan, Sarah spotted a young mother clutching her child, eyes wide with uncertainty. The sight fueled Sarah's resolve. For them, she yelled, gesturing towards the mother. That one moment ignited something magical. People began chanting louder, lifting signs higher. This was about protecting their homes, their families. Do you think we can keep pushing? Ryan asked, concern flickering in his eyes. Together, we can face anything, she promised, but uncertainty gnawed at her heart. Suddenly, the helicopter dipped closer, its spotlight piercing through the crowd like a knife. Gasps rippled around them. Sarah's skin prickled as she felt the pressure mount. She turned to Ryan. We need a plan, she breathed. We can't let this turn violent. It's not what we're about. Just as she finished speaking, a loud crack split the air. A flash from the crowd, a flash of fear, anger, and desperation. She stole a glance and saw someone had thrown a bottle towards the police line. The moment hung in the air, heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "Sarah, no!" Ryan shouted, yanking her back just in time as a row of officers stepped forward. They reacted swiftly, ready to contain the crowd. Tension crackled, and the atmosphere broke. The police formed a wall, and shouts erupted from all sides as a mass of voices clamored for justice. "Everyone, hold the line. Stay calm," Sarah yelled, though the fear curled tight in her stomach. This wasn't just a fight to save their homes anymore. It felt like the beginnings of a war. In that swirling chaos, Sarah's determination steeled. She thought of her neighbors, their faces etched in worry, their lives at stake. This was her moment to lead. But as she prepared to take action, another officer stepped forward. "We need to disperse," he barked, voice amplified. "This protest is illegal. You must leave now." Sarah's heart sank. Were their voices so easily disregarded? Did their struggles mean nothing against the power of the law? "We're not going anywhere," someone shouted from the crowd, but fear flickered through them like a flame in the wind. In that split second, Sarah's mind raced. They could either retreat and let darkness take them, or stand firm, risking everything for what they believed in. The weight of choice loomed heavily, and she felt the community pulse around her, lost, fragile, but fighting to believe. Just then, she caught Ryan's gaze, deep and unwavering. In that silent moment, a question lingered. Would they risk it all, or fight the looming shadows swaying above them? They held their ground, breaths mingling in the chaos, but what would happen next? The answer lay at the precipice of their courage. As the tension reached a boiling point, a sudden roar erupted from the crowd, drowning out the voice of the officer. Sarah felt the force of it, one collective heartbeat, one pulsing demand for dignity and recognition. It was electric. The crowd began to move, a fluid wave surging forward, and Sarah found herself carried along with them, fueled by the shared fire of their conviction. The officers tightened their formation, shields gleaming under the spotlight. Laughter of intimidation echoed as they readied themselves. Sarah felt the heat of anger rise in her chest, but tempered it with her desire for peace. Fighting fire with fire wouldn't work. She needed to find a way through this. "Everyone, hold steady," she chanted, her voice rising above the chaos. "We need to show them we're not a threat. We want to be heard." Ryan squeezed her hand tighter. She turned to him, the worry in his eyes mirroring her own. "We can't back down?" "Not now." But doubt was a slippery slope. As she looked into the faces around her, she saw their fear creeping in. The chants began to wane, faltering like a flame flickering against the wind. Sarah knew she had to act fast. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about all those who couldn't fight for themselves. "Listen," she called, her voice steady but passionate. "Don't let fear shatter our unity. We don't need to be violent to be heard. We can show them our hearts, show them that we matter." At those words, she felt the tide begin to shift. A few voices picked up her message. More joined in, the chant transforming. "Peace, peace, justice," echoed back from the front line, rippling through the crowd. The tension eased just a fraction as everyone focused on that shared purpose. The sight of those around her, stirred and galvanized, lit a fire inside Sarah. She climbed onto a low barrier, raising her hands like a conductor before an orchestra. "Look around you," she shouted. "We're stronger together. We refuse to be silenced. Our fight is for our community, our families." In that moment, a boy stepped forward, no more than 10 years old, holding a crumpled sign high above his head. It read, "I want my home." The sight was heartbreaking yet magnificent, encapsulating the essence of their struggle. Tears pricked at the corners of Sarah's eyes, but she blinked them away. They weren't just fighting for homes. They were fighting for futures. As the crowd erupted with renewed fervor, the officers hesitated. Maybe they hadn't expected unity forged from such despair. But Sarah sensed the looming danger still whispered along the edges. The helicopter's spotlight swung closer, casting its harsh beam across the gathering, illuminating a broad view of their defiance. The tension between freedom and oppression coiled thick in the air. Suddenly, Mr. Callahan's voice sliced through the atmosphere, dripping disdain. "Look at this. A spectacle of delusion. You think they care about your cries for help? You're nothing but an inconvenience." That struck a chord, igniting new fury. Doesn't he get it?" someone shouted. "He'll never understand." The fire in the crowd morphed again, emotional, into something both raw and beautiful. Their pleas turned to chants once more, this time pronounced and cohesive. But then, a flurry of movement broke their rhythm. A group of officers began advancing, pushing barriers aside. Fear surged back through the crowd like a tidal wave. Ryan turned to Sarah, urgency in his eyes. "What do we do? We need to protect them." Her heart raced. They were standing at the brink, a choice between igniting chaos or standing firm. "We can't let fear take charge again," she whispered urgently. Just then, a woman at the front of the crowd let out a piercing scream, a cry that clawed at Sarah's heart, snapping her from the brink of decision. What had they all come to? What would they sacrifice? In that moment, everything hung in the balance. As the officers drew closer, Sarah faced her community with conviction. Would they unite against this force storming towards them, or scatter under the weight of terror? The answer would define them all. But time was running out. Would their courage hold steady against the coming storm? The officers pressed forward, shields shining ominously under the harsh lights. A murmur of fear rippled through the crowd, the weight of uncertainty heavy in the air. But Sarah stood firm, breath steady with a mix of determination and dread. She could see the lines of tension deepening on Ryan's face as he glanced between her and the approaching line of officers. "Stay behind me," he urged, taking a protective stance that made her heart swell. But she wouldn't cower. "Not now, not ever." "Listen to me," Sarah shouted, projecting her voice above the clamor. "We won't let them intimidate us." She could feel her resolve igniting something in others. More heads turned toward her, eyes wide but sparkling with hope. "This is our time to stand. We have a right to be heard." The boy with the crumpled sign was still visible, smaller now, but no less powerful. As the chant of peace, peace, justice, arose again, it felt like a mantra meant to repel fear. Sarah stepped closer to the front, eyes locked on the officers, challenging their pretense of menace with her own fire. But as the officers advanced, a sudden sound pierced the night, a loud crack, like thunder. A projectile hit the ground, dispersing smoke into the air. The crowd gasped, voices faltering. Chaos erupted as some backed away, fear repainting the faces of the brave. "Don't run. Stay with me," Sarah pleaded, lifting her arms up in an attempt to rally the wavering spirits. The smoke spread, dulling her visibility and thickening the tension. Each breath felt heavy. From within the cloud, a figure emerged, a woman whose fiery red hair was like a beacon. It was Clara, an activist known for her daring spirit. "They want us divided," Clara called, her voice slicing through the chaos. "Don't let the smoke blind you. We're stronger together." With those words, she took the hands of two strangers beside her, urging them forward. Sarah found herself inspired by Clara's fierce light. She bolted through the haze toward her, the world becoming clearer as she moved. "Come on. Show them who we are." Clara's voice surged like a wave, pulling more people in. With renewed determination, the crowd began to gather again, slowly melting back together. One by one, hands reached out, connecting the fingers of neighbors and strangers alike. Sarah caught Ryan's eye, and he nodded, squeezing her hand once more as the energy shifted back toward resilience. But Mr. Callahan's sneering voice echoed again from behind the officers. "You really think this will change anything? You're wasting your time. Change starts with us." Sarah shouted back, eyes ablaze. A ripple of agreement sparked among the crowd, voices rising collectively to drown out the despair he tried to sow. Then, the unthinkable happened. A single voice from the back rang out, a small child, barely legible through trembling lips. "I want my home." That childless voice broke down the wall of resistance forming between fear and courage. It brought tears to Sarah's eyes again, but this time she wasn't sad. It was a call to action reverberating through the hearts around her. The crowd surged once more, a powerful force against the wall of uniforms. "You'll have your home," Clara shouted, and her words wrapped around everyone like a warm blanket, infused with hope. "Together, we fight." With one breath, the chants returned, stronger, richer, filled with emotion. People took steps forward, inch by inch, embracing the heat of a shared purpose. Yet, just as the tide began to swell, Sarah caught a glint of movement behind the line of officers. It was difficult to see clearly through the chaos, but shadows grew more defined. A new group, clad in different uniforms, moving deliberately toward them. Her heart raced anew. What was coming next? As the chant echoed on, turning the atmosphere electric, Sarah realized, whatever joined the fray from behind the line, it would change everything. The tension in the air thickened, mingling with the haze from the smoke. Sarah squinted, trying to make out the new figures emerging from the shadows. They looked different, sharper tactical vests glinting under the streetlights, bold emblems stitched onto their uniforms. A chill shot down her spine. "Who are they?" Ryan's voice was low near her ear. A mixture of fear and determination colored his tone, and his hand tightened around hers. "I don't know, but we can't back down now," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. She raised her chin high, daring to step further forward. The crowd behind her whispered, shifting their weight, unsure what was about to unfold. As the newcomers drew closer, the murmurs erupted into a chorus of confused gasps. They formed a line, flanked by the officers, effectively boxing the crowd in, their intentions unclear yet menacing. "Your time is up," one of them shouted, a deep, booming voice that carried over the tumult. "Disperse immediately or face consequences." But Sarah didn't move. She glanced around, meeting the wide eyes of those beside her, fear, uncertainty, but also the flicker of resolve. "We're not going anywhere," she cried, her heart pounding. "We deserve to be heard." Clara stepped up beside her, fierce and unyielding. "You can't silence us. We stand for justice. For our homes." Her voice rose above the thrumming uncertainty, igniting something powerful in the crowd. And then, something shifted. A wave of energy flowed among them, carrying the weight of shared vulnerability. The voices of the people grew louder, drowning out the brash demand of the newcomers. "We want justice," rang out. "Together we rise." As the chants escalated, Sarah felt her heart swell. It was a beautiful cacophony of hope and determination. She noticed more fists being raised, fingers entwining across the divide of fear and courage. The strength of unity breathed life back into the crowd. "Who are you to demand that we comply?" someone shouted from the rear. It was an older man, his weathered face set with defiance. "We're tired of being ignored." With that, the energy shifted again. The crowd surged, moving as one, pushing forward. The sounds of resistance peaked, a blend of voices flooding the air. This was their moment, their fight. Suddenly, the newcomers hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. It was just the slightest pause, but it felt monumental. Just then, Clara led a new chant, reaching into the hearts of everyone present. Fight for our homes. Fight for family. As Clara's voice soared, Sarah felt her soul ignite. She couldn't have prepared for how the next wave would crash upon their resolve. From amidst the chaos, she caught a glimpse of a young girl peering through the crowd, her eyes wide and scared. "Hey!" Sarah shouted, breaking through the current of voices. "Don't be afraid. We stand together. You are not alone." The girl's face brightened, and slowly, she began to step forward, her small hands reaching out, finding allies in the arms of those beside her. At that moment, it became clear this was more than a protest. It was a movement, a force of humanity gathering in a storm of conviction. But just as they began to find their footing, the officers regained composure. With swift motions, they began to push the crowd back, creating a barrier between their determined voices and the newfound hope. "Stop!" Sarah yelled, heart racing. Suddenly, everything began to spin. What if they'd lost their strength? What if they were scattered again? As the officers advanced, one figure stepped forward from the line. It was a woman, her face stern yet conflicted, and Sarah felt a strange uneasy sensation. Could she be a friend, an ally even? "Let me through," she called, pushing against the tide of officers. "They have the right to speak." The crowd held their breath, hope flickering like candlelight. What would this woman bring to the chaos? The woman pushed her way through, her voice cutting through the thick tension. The crowd watched, breaths held. Sarah's heart galloped in her chest as she tried to gauge the enforcement agents. Would they let her through, or would they see her as just another obstacle? "Please listen," the woman continued, her tone softening now as she reached the front. "Everyone deserves a voice. Stand down." The officer in front, a hardened man with sharp features, narrowed his eyes. There was a moment of silence, pregnant with potential. "Step aside," he ordered, his voice cold, but there was a tremor there, an uncertainty that hadn't been there moments ago. With fierce determination, she met his gaze. "No. They're standing up for their rights. You can't just bully them into silence." The crowd erupted, their energy pouring back into the space. "We want justice." They shouted again, and Sarah felt a fire within her. This woman, whoever she was, had sparked something urgent and needed. "Who are you?" someone shouted. "Why are you risking your position for us?" "My name is Jenna," she replied, her voice rising above the chaos. "I'm a part of this community. I won't let you bully my friends." Sarah couldn't help but smile. There was something in Jenna's eyes, fire, fearlessness, the stirring sense of solidarity that had been brewing in the crowd. It was contagious, each word swelling the hope inside her. "Jenna!" Clara shouted, joining Sarah at the forefront. "We need you. Tell them we have the right to be here." Jenna nodded, stepping further into the fray, her posture bold. "You have the right to speak. Your homes, your families, your lives, none of it should be ignored." Ryan squeezed Sarah's hand, a connection forging deeper between them, as they stood shoulder to shoulder with Clara and Jenna. This was more than just a protest now. It was a connection, a shared commitment to each other as safety and justice. Suddenly, an officer lunged forward, his arm reaching to grab Jenna, but Sarah reacted instinctively. "No!" she shouted, pulling Jenna back. "We stand together. You touch one of us, you touch all of us." The crowd shifted, a wave of bodies pushing forward in protective solidarity. There was strength in their numbers, a realization hitting home. They weren't just standing against a few officers, they were creating a movement. Then, a voice rang out from the back, an elderly woman with a determined look. "We've seen it all, and we will not go back." We owe it to the generations before us. Make room, Ryan shouted suddenly as he scanned the scene for a path. We need to show them we won. Back down. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. They began to shift as one, pressing forward, filling up the gaps between the officers. Sarah's heart raced. She felt alive, empowered. And then, without warning, the tension snapped. The officers began to brace themselves, the air electric with the weight of their collective defiance. Would they strike back? Would fear turn to chaos? Just as things seemed to teeter on the brink, Jenna raised her hands. Talk to us. We believe in dialogue. Don't let them push us apart. But would the authorities listen? Every eye turned, anticipation thick in the air. The future of their fight hinged on that fragile moment of connection. Could their courage forge a new path, or would it all come crashing down in defeat? The moment felt suspended, like the world had stopped just for them. The crowd teetered at the edge, eager yet fearful, ready to either leap forward into the unknown or retreat into the shadows of doubt. Sarah's eyes darted to Jenna, whose hands were still raised in a gesture that combined both plea and defiance. Please, Jenna's voice broke through the murmur of the crowd, softer now. We just want to talk. We're not your enemies. The officer hesitated, his grip tightening around the baton at his side. The tension was cracking, layers of fear and defiance mingling in the air. Sarah could sense that fear, too, what it might mean for each one of them standing there. What repercussions could follow. Then suddenly, a chant rose from the crowd, echoing like a pulse through the street. We want justice. We want justice. It started softly, then intensified, the voices layering over one another until it felt like a roar. The officer glanced over his shoulder, perhaps searching for backup, as uncertainty flickered across his features. A small victory, but one that limped forward without confidence. Does he see us? Clara whispered to Sarah, her voice barely carrying over the cacophony. He has to, Sarah replied, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Okay, Jenna pressed on, the defiance creeping back into her voice. This is a chance to communicate. You've got the power to de-escalate. Talk to us. Help us find a way forward. A few of the officers shifted, their rigid stance faltering, and Sarah seized the moment. You protect and serve. Serve us. Be the leaders you're meant to be. Even as she spoke, her heart raced. She was terrified but invigorated at the same time. The hardened officer's jaw tightened, but behind him, she could see his partners trading uneasy glances. This was no ordinary gathering. It was a wave that threatened to crash down on their position unless they took a step back. Don't let fear decide, shouted the elderly woman from before, her voice now rising back above the din. Years ago, we fought for what is right. We won. To be silenced now. Jenna's eyes gleamed with understanding. Together, we can bridge this divide. But we need you to listen. Just then, the flags above flapped wildly in the wind, a symbol of unity twisted in struggle. Ryan squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, his fingers warm and reassuring. Whatever happens, I'm here, he murmured, grounding her amidst the chaos. A piercing whistle sliced through the air, a signal from higher up, a rallying call for backup. Immediate fear surged in Sarah's chest. They're calling for more officers, she whispered in dread. Stay together, Jenna urged, her voice steady. We have to show them we won. Back down. The crowd tightened its formation as the chant transformed into an anthem, one heart beating for justice and belonging. Amidst the vibrations of unity, hope flickered. Maybe they could create the change they desperately sought. But just as the energy seemed to reach its peak, a shadow fell over them. More officers poured into view, their presence dimming the spark of courage. Accusation and fear dripped from the uniforms, and Sarah's heart dropped. Are they here to escalate? She wondered, glancing at Ryan. The moment of truth was closing in. They either had to make their stand now, or risk losing it all to fear and intimidation? Would their courage be met with understanding, or had they only ignited the sparks of conflict? Time hung in the balance, waiting on the cusp of action. As the reinforcements neared, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever came next. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the crowd, as if the universe itself was shining a light on their fight for justice. Sarah stood at the front, her heart pounding, feeling the weight of every opinion, every hope, and every fear in the air. Together, she thought, we can make them listen. As more officers arrived, tension crackled. The crowd held their breath collectively, inhaling courage. Sarah could see Jenna rallying with newfound strength, her presence a guiding beacon amidst the growing chaos. "We need to show them we're not afraid," someone shouted, igniting emboldened shouts from the masses. "Not afraid of you." The officers advanced, barricading them in, but Sarah refused to let fear creep in. "Look around," she yelled, her voice fighting against the din. "We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for our homes, our futures, our right to exist." Suddenly, an officer stepped forward, the muscle in his jaw taut. "You need to disperse. There are consequences for gathering like this." Despite his threats, uncertainty flickered in his stance. "Consequences?" Clara's voice shot back, steely and defiant. "Tell us, what will you do to us? We stand united. We're here together, fighting for something real." Around her, the crowd erupted in an uproar, voices rising, echoing Clara's fierce defiance. No more fear. No more silence. As the chants picked up in volume, something remarkable happened. The fear that had once hovered like a cloud seemed to dissipate. It was replaced with a sense of belonging and purpose. The officer's stance wavered, revealing the internal battle he struggled with. Sarah sensed the shift. They were piercing through the walls of doubt. But just then, Mr. Callahan stepped forward from the back, his presence returning like a dark specter. "You think this will change anything? Your whimsical dreams against the law?" His tone dripped with disdain, but here he stood, on a field he clearly underestimated. "Whimsical?" Sarah shouted back, her heart racing, each word heated with passion. "You don't understand. This isn't whimsical. It's our reality." Ryan squeezed her hand again, grounding her. She could feel the warmth of his love and support traveling through her. "You've got this," he whispered. As Sarah pushed forward, the distance between her and the officer narrowed. "You think we're just noise? Look around." She waved her hands, gesturing to the faces in the crowd, young and old, fearful and brave. "We have families, homes, and a right to stand for what's ours. You're not just quelling a bunch of protesters. You're silencing our lives." In that moment, Sarah's words landed, shifting the energy. Some officers exchanged looks, their expressions softening for just a moment, uncertainty clouding their earlier resolve. This was not a riot. It was a community refusing to be pushed aside. Hope surged through her, as if lighting a pathway ahead. "This isn't just about me, or even Ryan. It's about every soul who believes they are worth fighting for. Tell them, Sarah." A voice erupted from the crowd, fueling the wave of emotion swelling between them. "I'll say it again. Love isn't a privilege. It's a fundamental right." Her voice crescendoed. The crowd echoed her sentiments like a chorus. "Powerful." Ryan's voice rang out, rough with emotion. Then Jenna took a step forward, her eyes fierce and forgiving. "We believe in dialogue. We believe in justice. Will you listen?" It was as if a bridge was being built right there, however fragile. The officer took a breath, then another, their resolve faltering in the face of unity. Just as panic threatened to drown out their voices, Sarah spotted Mr. Callahan moving through the gathering, a darkening storm above them. "Enough of this," he bellowed, his face twisted in triumph. You'll be silenced. The power lies with me. And then Clara stood, filled with a fury of compassion. The power lies with the people. Your money can't buy our voices. We'll be heard. In that profound moment, a wave of realization washed over Sarah. They weren't only fighting for their homes. They were dismantling the barriers enforced by ridicule and disdain. "Take a step back," shouted a bystander, joining Clara, and suddenly there was no boundary between them and the officers. "We want to create this change through understanding." The rippling energy became palpable. Sarah threw her arms wide, galvanizing those voices weaved into one another. Who are we? We are one, changed by shared struggle, striving for a better tomorrow. Adrenaline coursed through her veins with every heartbeat. This legacy isn't just leaving our homes behind. It's about crafting a future where love eclipses socioeconomic divides, where our children can grow up knowing they are valued. But then, before they could gather strength, the orders rang out sharply. "Brace yourselves," commanded the officer. A commanding boom followed. "Now, this is your last warning." The crowd hesitated. Was this the moment where all they had fought for could crumble? Sarah closed her eyes, picturing Mia's radiant smile, her laughter bright like sunshine. She would fight not just for the present, but for her daughter's future. "What do we do?" Ryan whispered, urgency igniting the air around them. "Together," Sarah shouted. "We hold the line." With that, they began to push forward, side by side, forming a human shield for one another. The collective spirit rose, melding into something that defied fear. "This isn't just for us. It's for love, for family, for everyone," Sarah declared, her heart racing in synchronicity with the crowd. And then, something incredible happened. An officer lowered his shield, a subtle crack blossoming on their solid wall. They felt it then. The tides were turning. The crowd surged, voices braiding one another into a tapestry of future hope. The elements of unity surrounded them like a wall of warmth. They were together, enlivened by courage. "None of us are back downing," Ryan called out, rallying everyone around. "And if you think you can silence us, you're wrong." As the voices harmonized into a resounding chant, it echoed in Sarah's heart a palpable truth, alive and unyielding. Love persevered. United, they stood tall. Then, amid the chaos and uncertainty, the officer's resolve broke. All right. Let us talk." A ripple of shock raced through the crowd as the sunlight broke through the clouds, infusing the moment with hope. Slowly at first, then gathered by the tides of compassion, they moved. Officers lowered their barriers and replaced their cords with open dialogue. "What will it take?" one officer asked, looking past the tumult into the heart of the community. For Sarah, it became clearer than ever. All it takes is understanding. Respect for our families, for our struggles. The cracks in their walls seeped warmth into the coldness of the world. And in that moment, against all odds, they realized they could forge a different path. With shared tears paired with joyous laughter, they stood together, a community wrapped in resilience born of love. As they exchanged words, negotiations filled the air. Every heartbeat stoked a flame of hope. This wasn't just a victory. It was a transformation, a new beginning. Finally, as the sun set and painted the horizon with hues of belief, Sarah turned to Ryan, her heart swelling. "We did it. Together. I've always believed in us," he said, his voice thick with emotion. And in that fragile stillness, against all odds, love reigned. If you felt every moment in this story, if you believe in the power of love and unity, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive tales where transformation takes center stage. If you believe, leave a like to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Your engagement matters. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Your thoughts are fuel for our community. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Together, we can empower a wave of change.